Every day, you make hundreds of decisions: what to eat, where to go, what to say, what to think. Some are small and seem insignificant, while others alter the entire course of your life. But behind every decision lies a story, a web of emotions, experiences, beliefs, and hidden biases quietly shaping the outcome. The truth is, most of our decisions are not rational at all. They are driven by forces we barely recognize. The mind does not simply calculate. It feels, it fears, it remembers, it predicts. And every choice we make reflects a conversation between these inner forces. In this audiobook, we will uncover the invisible architecture of decision-making, the psychological machinery that drives why we choose what we choose. Chapter 1: The Architecture of Choice. Every decision you make, what to wear, where to live, who to trust, is shaped by a complex inner system that most of us never truly see. We like to imagine decision-making as a simple, deliberate act, a weighing of pros and cons, a careful analysis, a final moment of clarity. But neuroscience tells us something far more fascinating. By the time you become aware of a decision, your brain has already been working behind the scenes, orchestrating a silent conversation among emotion, memory, instinct, and reason. The act of choosing is not a single spark of willpower. It is the final note of an elaborate symphony that began long before you knew it was playing. The human brain is constantly scanning, predicting, and interpreting. Every second, it processes an enormous amount of information, most of it beneath the surface of awareness. When faced with a choice, the subconscious does not wait for your permission to begin. It analyzes your environment, cross-references your memories, evaluates past outcomes, and estimates potential rewards or risks. Then, milliseconds before your conscious mind joins the conversation, it tilts the scale toward one direction. By the time you decide, you're often just confirming what your subconscious has already determined. This is why neuroscientists say the moment of choice is largely an illusion. The real decision happens in the shadows. At the heart of this process lies the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for reasoning, planning, and self-control. It is often celebrated as the command center of human intelligence. But the truth is, it does not operate alone. The emotional centers of the brain, the limbic system, the amygdala, the insula, play an equally powerful role. They store emotional memories and attach feeling to every possibility. When you consider an option, these emotional areas flood your system with subtle sensations, a feeling of excitement, a twinge of anxiety, a sense of comfort, or a vague unease. You might call it instinct, but it's really your brain's emotional history whispering to you through sensation. For example, imagine you're offered a new job in a different city. Rationally, you begin listing the pros and cons: salary, location, growth potential. But beneath the surface, your emotional brain is running its own analysis. Maybe it remembers the loneliness of moving before, the thrill of a fresh start, or the anxiety of financial insecurity. Those emotions weigh in silently, coloring your logic. When you eventually decide, it feels like reason prevailed. But in truth, reason and emotion have been dancing together the entire time. The rational mind provides the explanation. The emotional mind provides the motivation. This partnership between emotion and reason is the cornerstone of the architecture of choice. Yet, most people misunderstand their relationship. We tend to treat emotion as a problem, something irrational that clouds our judgment. But in reality, emotion gives meaning to our decisions. Without it, choices lose their weight. Patients with brain injuries that disconnect emotion from reasoning often become incapable of deciding at all. They can describe every option logically, but cannot choose between them. Emotion is the compass of decision-making. It tells us what matters. At the same time, the brain's memory systems constantly feed this process. Every experience you've ever had is stored somewhere within your neural network. When faced with a decision, your brain searches those archives for patterns. It looks for similar situations, recalls what worked, and warns you about what didn't. This is why habits form so powerfully. They're the brain's way of automating decisions based on past outcomes. You might think you're making a fresh choice, but often your brain is just replaying an old one that felt safe before. Understanding this loop is key to reclaiming control. When you see that your automatic responses are simply echoes of the past, you gain the ability to rewrite them. But the architecture of choice isn't purely internal. It's also shaped by your surroundings. Every sound, sight, and word you encounter influences your subconscious in subtle ways. The color of a button on a website, the tone of someone's voice, the framing of a question, all can steer your decision without your awareness. This is known as priming. Marketers and politicians use it skillfully. For instance, if you're asked whether you think something is safe versus risky, your brain focuses on entirely different information depending on the word used. The environment builds invisible walls around your freedom of thought, and only awareness can dismantle them. Still, even with all this complexity, there is one truth that anchors it all. Decision-making is not a moment, but a process. It begins with perception, the brain's intake of stimuli. Then comes interpretation, where your beliefs and expectations color what you perceive. Emotion steps in to label each possibility as attractive or threatening. Memory recalls patterns to predict the likely outcome. Finally, the conscious mind steps forward, taking credit for a decision that was already well underway. It feels like a victory of willpower, but it's really the final step in a vast internal dialogue. Recognizing this doesn't mean we lack free will. It means our freedom lies in awareness. You cannot stop your subconscious from influencing you, but you can learn to recognize its voice. When you pause, before deciding, when you ask yourself why you feel drawn to one choice over another, you invite consciousness into the process. That moment of reflection transforms an automatic response into an intentional one. This is what true freedom looks like. Not freedom from influence, but freedom through understanding. Consider how this plays out in daily life. You might think you're choosing a meal based on taste, but your brain is recalling comfort foods from childhood. You might think you're buying a product because it's the best deal, but a clever advertisement primed your emotions hours before. You might think you're following logic in a relationship decision, but deep down, attachment patterns from the past are pulling you toward the familiar. None of these patterns are inherently bad. They're simply the machinery of the mind. But when you see them clearly, you can decide which ones serve you and which ones do not. This awareness creates what psychologists call metacognition, thinking about your thinking. When you become aware of how decisions form, you gain leverage over them. You begin to notice the gap between impulse and action. You sense when fear is disguising itself as caution, or when excitement is tempting you into risk. Over time, that awareness builds a kind of quiet mastery. You no longer rush to decide. You observe the process unfold. You don't fight your instincts. You listen to them, question them, and integrate them with reason. Ultimately, understanding the architecture of choice is not about removing emotion, logic, or instinct from your decisions. It's about learning how they coexist. The rational mind provides structure. The emotional mind provides direction, and instinct provides speed. Together, they create the balance that allows humans to adapt, survive, and evolve. The greatest decision makers are not those who suppress their feelings, but those who understand them deeply enough to use them wisely. The more you explore this architecture, the more you realize that decision-making is a reflection of consciousness itself. Every choice you make, from the smallest to the largest, reveals how awake you are to your own patterns. To decide is to create, to draw a line between what was and what will be. And when you learn to see the invisible mechanisms shaping that act of creation. You move from being a passenger in your own mind to becoming the author of your destiny. Chapter 2. The Emotional Engine. At the heart of every decision lies emotion, the silent current that moves us long before thought begins. We like to picture ourselves as rational beings who occasionally feel, but in truth, we are emotional beings who occasionally think. Every judgment, every preference, every gut feeling is steeped in emotion. It is emotion that gives meaning to our choices, turning a neutral world into a landscape of value, fear, and desire. Without it, decision-making collapses into paralysis. Scientists discovered this truth through patients who suffered damage to the emotional centers of their brains, particularly the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. These individuals retained full intelligence and memory. They could analyze data, calculate probabilities, and list the pros and cons of any situation with precision. Yet, when asked to make even the simplest decision, what to eat for lunch, what time to schedule an appointment, they became stuck in endless loops of deliberation. Without emotional input, nothing mattered enough to choose. Emotion, it turns out, is not the enemy of reason, it is its foundation. To understand the emotional engine of decision-making, imagine that every choice you face is filtered through a hidden control panel deep within your brain. This panel constantly evaluates the emotional significance of each option. It does not ask, what is logical, but how does this feel? These feelings are not random. They are coded responses based on memory, experience, and survival instinct. When something feels right, what you are really sensing is your brain's recognition of a pattern that has led to reward or safety in the past. When something feels wrong, it is your internal alarm, shaped by past pain or threat, signaling you to stay away. This process operates automatically and continuously. You see a stranger's face and instantly sense whether to trust them. You read a message and feel warmth or unease before analyzing the words. You walk into a room and, without thinking, know whether you belong. These judgments emerge from emotional memory, not deliberate reasoning. Your brain compares each new stimulus to a vast library of stored emotional associations. The feeling that arises comfort, fear, curiosity, attraction, is your body's rapid summary of that comparison. In essence, emotion is the body's way of thinking faster than the mind. Yet emotion can be both guide and deceiver. The same emotional shortcuts that once kept us safe can now mislead us in complex modern environments. Fear, for instance, evolved to protect us from danger. But in a world where physical threats are rare and psychological ones abound, fear often overreacts. It tells us to avoid failure, discomfort, or uncertainty, even when those experiences are necessary for growth. Desire, too, can betray us. What once motivated our ancestors to seek food or shelter now drives us to chase status, consumption, and validation. The emotional engine is powerful, but without awareness, it can steer us toward short-term comfort at the cost of long-term fulfillment. One of the most fascinating aspects of emotion is how it interacts with memory. Every experience you have ever lived is tagged with emotional weight. Think of memory as a vast library, and emotion as the system of highlighting that marks certain passages as important. When a situation arises that resembles a past event, your brain retrieves those highlighted memories first. This is why emotional memories are so vivid and long-lasting. They are the ones your mind wants to learn from. A single moment of humiliation in childhood can shape your behavior decades later. A flash of joy can ignite a lifetime pursuit. We do not remember facts equally, we remember feelings that changed us. This emotional tagging explains much of human behavior that seems irrational on the surface. A person may avoid public speaking not because it is truly dangerous, but because years ago they felt shame while being judged. Another may overwork themselves not purely out of ambition, but because success once brought them love and attention. These emotional associations become invisible scripts that guide decisions automatically. To break free from them, we must trace emotion back to its origin. Ask not only, "What do I feel?" but "Where did this feeling come from? And does it still serve me?" Emotions also interact directly with the body. They are not confined to the brain. They manifest physically as sensations: tightness in the chest, warmth in the stomach, a surge of energy in the limbs. This is why we call them feelings. These bodily signals are ancient forms of communication, the language of the nervous system long before words existed. Learning to read these signals gives us extraordinary insight into our decision-making. Anxiety might mean your body senses uncertainty. Excitement may mean alignment with growth, and numbness might mean disconnection. By paying attention to how decisions feel in your body, you can access data that logic alone cannot provide. However, emotion is not just reactive, it can also be shaped. The more we understand how emotions arise, the more we can influence them. For instance, the way we frame a situation changes the emotions attached to it. Psychologists call this reappraisal. If you see a challenge as a threat, you trigger anxiety. If you see it as an opportunity, you evoke motivation. The external event is the same, but the internal meaning changes everything. This shows that emotion is not something that simply happens to us. It is something we can participate in shaping. The interplay between emotion and logic can be visualized as a dance. When they move in harmony, decisions feel clear and empowering. When they clash, confusion arises. Some people lean too heavily on emotion, making impulsive decisions that satisfy immediate feelings but ignore consequences. Others overvalue logic, suppressing their emotions until they become disconnected from purpose. True wisdom lies in integration. Emotion should inform logic, and logic should refine emotion. The mind that can feel deeply and think clearly possesses balance, the kind of balance that leads to wise, meaningful decisions. Emotion also drives motivation. It is the spark that ignites action. You can understand something intellectually and still fail to act because emotion has not yet aligned with your intention. Knowing that exercise is healthy means little until you feel the desire to move. Understanding that forgiveness is right does not guarantee you will release resentment until compassion takes root. Emotion transforms knowledge into motion. This is why great leaders, teachers, and storytellers appeal to the heart. First, they know that inspiration moves people faster than instruction. Still, emotion alone is volatile. It shifts with mood, fatigue, hormones, and environment. The same person who feels brave in the morning may feel uncertain by night. This is why emotional intelligence, understanding, managing, and using emotion effectively is essential to decision-making. Emotional intelligence allows you to pause before reacting, to question whether your feeling reflects reality or simply habit. It gives you the power to feel fully without being ruled by what you feel. To master the emotional engine is not to silence it, but to learn its language. It means recognizing that emotion is neither good nor bad. It is information. It tells you what matters, what you fear, what you love, what you long for. When you listen carefully, emotion reveals the truth beneath your logic. But when you ignore it or let it run wild, it becomes the hidden hand that steers your life without your consent. Ultimately, emotion is the energy of decision. It is the pulse of meaning that turns thought into choice. The goal is not to eliminate it, but to align it with awareness. When you can observe your emotions without being consumed by them, when you can feel deeply and still choose wisely, you gain a quiet mastery over the mind. You begin to see that emotion is not a flaw in human reasoning. It is the heart that gives reasoning its purpose. The emotional engine does not need to be tamed. It needs to be understood, respected, and guided. Only then does it become what it was always meant to be. Not a storm that drives you, but a wind that carries you where you truly want to go. Chapter 3. The Illusion of Rationality. We like to believe we are rational beings. We picture ourselves sitting in the driver's seat of our own minds, steering carefully through the landscape of choices, with logic as our compass. We tell ourselves that our decisions are guided by reason, calculation, and clear thinking. Yet, the deeper we look into how we actually make decisions, the more this belief begins to unravel. What we call rationality is often a story we tell ourselves after the fact, a comforting illusion that masks the emotional and unconscious forces truly at work. Human beings are storytellers. From the moment we wake up to the moment we fall asleep, our minds are weaving narratives to make sense of our experiences. This storytelling instinct is not a flaw, it's how we find meaning in a chaotic world, but it comes with a cost. After making a decision, we instinctively construct a logical explanation for it, even when the real cause was emotional or impulsive. Psychologists call this post-rationalization. You might tell yourself you bought that car because it's reliable, but the truth may be that it made you feel confident. You might say you left a relationship because it was unhealthy, but part of you may have simply feared vulnerability. The story gives structure to the feeling, and we cling to it because it protects our sense of control. This illusion of rationality is not just a psychological quirk, it's a survival mechanism. The human mind craves coherence. We need to believe our actions make sense, that our choices reflect who we are. When our decisions contradict our beliefs or values, it creates a tension known as cognitive dissonance. To resolve this discomfort, the brain alters the story rather than confront the inconsistency. For instance, if you buy something expensive that you later regret, you might convince yourself it was an investment. If you stay in a job you dislike, you might tell yourself it's just for stability. These are not lies. They are the mind's way of restoring emotional balance by editing the narrative to fit the self-image. One of the most striking demonstrations of this illusion comes from split brain studies. When scientists severed the connection between the two hemispheres of the brain in certain patients, each half began to operate somewhat independently. When one hemisphere performed an action, the other, responsible for language, would invent an explanation for it, even though it had no idea why the action occurred. The verbal side would instantly generate a plausible story, confident in its accuracy. This revealed something astonishing. The brain's default mode is to explain, not necessarily to understand. We do not seek truth first. We seek coherence. This same process plays out constantly in our everyday lives. When we make a choice, the emotional brain acts quickly, driven by instinct and past experience. The rational brain follows behind, weaving a justification that fits our values and self-image. The mind is less like a judge, evaluating evidence, and more like a lawyer, defending a client. It seeks arguments that support what it already feels to be true. This is why people can hold on to beliefs in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Logic serves emotion, not the other way around. Consider how this plays out in the world of consumer behavior. Marketers understand that people rarely buy based on facts. They buy based on feelings, status, belonging, excitement, nostalgia, and then justify those purchases afterward. A person might choose one phone over another, not because of technical superiority, but because of how it aligns with their identity. "I just like the design," they'll say, unaware that the design appeals to deeper emotional associations, perhaps elegance, creativity, or success. The rational explanation is neat and tidy, but the true decision was emotional from the start. Even in critical decisions, career choices, relationships, political beliefs, the same mechanism operates. We imagine ourselves carefully reasoning through information, but most of the time, we are filtering data through emotional bias. When we encounter evidence that supports what we already believe, we accept it easily. When we encounter evidence that contradicts us, we find reasons to dismiss it. This is confirmation bias, one of the most pervasive distortions in human reasoning. It allows us to maintain a consistent worldview and protect our sense of certainty. Rationality bends to preserve emotional comfort. But understanding this illusion is not a cause for despair, it's a call for awareness. Once you recognize that emotion and bias inevitably color your reasoning, you can begin to account for them. True rationality doesn't mean being emotionless. It means being emotionally aware. It means asking, what am I feeling right now? And how might that be influencing what I believe? It means questioning the story your mind tells after you've already acted. When you notice the narrative forming, I did this because, pause and look beneath it. What was the real spark? What emotion moved first? Modern neuroscience shows that even the most analytical thinkers rely on emotion for decision-making. A chess grandmaster, for example, may appear to calculate every move logically, but in truth, their intuition built from years of experience guides most of their choices in an instant. They then use reason to evaluate and justify those moves. The best decisions are rarely purely rational or purely emotional. They are integrations of both. Rationality provides structure, emotion provides direction. Together, they form what could be called informed intuition. However, the illusion of rationality becomes dangerous when we cling to it blindly. It can make us arrogant, certain that our way of thinking is superior, that we are immune to bias, while others are not. This kind of self-deception closes the door to growth. Humility, on the other hand, opens it. When you admit that your reasoning is never pure, that every decision is touched by feeling, you become more flexible, more curious, more compassionate. You listen better, you judge less, and you think more deeply. History is filled with examples of societies and leaders who fell victim to the illusion of rationality. They justified wars, economic decisions, and moral failures with logic that, in hindsight, was built on fear, pride, or greed. Collectively, humans are capable of extraordinary reasoning, but also extraordinary rationalization. Awareness is what separates wisdom from folly. The wise are not those who never err in judgment, but those who see their own illusions clearly enough to learn from them. In the end, rationality is not a solid wall of truth. It's a flexible framework built around our emotions, beliefs, and memories. To pretend it is pure is to misunderstand the mind itself. Our brains evolved not to discover objective truth, but to survive, connect, and find meaning. The stories we tell about our choices are part of that survival strategy. But awareness allows us to take authorship of those stories. We can still use reason, but with humility. We can still trust intuition, but with discernment. The illusion of rationality fades only when we dare to look behind the curtain of thought and ask, why do I believe what I believe? Why did I really make that choice? That question is not easy, but it is the beginning of true self-understanding. Because once you see the storyteller within, you stop being trapped by the story. And in that awareness, you find something far greater than logic. You find wisdom. Chapter 4. The Bias Trap. Every human mind walks through a maze of invisible walls. These walls are not made of logic or truth, but of shortcuts, mental habits we call cognitive biases. They shape how we see, how we judge, and ultimately, how we decide. Biases are not signs of stupidity or weakness. They are features of the brain's design, evolved to help us survive in a world that once demanded quick reactions rather than perfect accuracy. But in the modern world, where our choices are complex and our environments flooded with information, these same shortcuts can quietly lead us astray. To understand bias, Imagine the brain as an efficiency machine. Every second, it receives millions of sensory inputs, sounds, sights, memories, ideas, emotions. Processing all of that consciously would be impossible. So the brain develops filters, patterns of thought that help it decide what to pay attention to and what to ignore. These filters make quick judgments, safe or unsafe, good or bad, familiar or strange. Most of the time, they work beautifully, but sometimes they trick us into mistaking convenience for truth. One of the most common and dangerous biases is confirmation bias, the tendency to seek, interpret, and remember information that supports what we already believe. When you hold an opinion, your brain treats it like territory to defend. It hunts for evidence that reinforces your stance and dismisses or forgets anything that challenges it. This is why debates so rarely change minds. People do not enter discussions to discover truth. They enter to protect identity. Confirmation bias builds a comforting echo chamber around us, where our beliefs grow stronger but not necessarily wiser. Another powerful distortion is the anchoring bias. The first piece of information we encounter becomes an anchor that shapes every judgment that follows. If a shirt is first displayed at $200 and then discounted to $100, the brain sees a bargain, even if the shirt's true value is far less. The initial number has anchored our perception. The same effect occurs in negotiations, salary expectations, and even relationships. The first impression, the first story, the first price, these create gravitational pull on the mind, and escaping that pull requires conscious effort. Then there is the availability heuristic, a mental shortcut that makes us judge likelihood by what comes easily to mind. After watching a series of plane crash reports, we start to believe flying is dangerous, even though statistically it is far safer than driving. Our brains mistake vividness for frequency. The easier something is to recall, the more true or common it feels. This is why fear sells, why sensational headlines dominate, and why we often misjudge risks. The mind is not a calculator, it's a storyteller that mistakes drama for data. Another subtle bias is the halo effect, our tendency to let one positive trait of a person or thing influence our entire judgment of them. When someone is attractive or confident, we unconsciously assume they are also intelligent, kind, or capable. This bias doesn't only apply to people. It colors how we view products, leaders, and even ideas. Charisma can disguise incompetence, just as quiet brilliance can go unnoticed behind modesty. The halo effect reminds us that first impressions are powerful but rarely complete. At the opposite end lies negativity bias, the mind's tendency to give more weight to negative experiences than positive ones. This too was once a survival mechanism. In our evolutionary past, overlooking danger could mean death, while missing an opportunity for pleasure simply meant trying again. So the brain evolved to focus more on threats than rewards. Today, that bias keeps us trapped in cycles of anxiety and regret. We remember criticism longer than praise, pain more vividly than joy. It's why one harsh comment can overshadow 10 kind ones, and why we hesitate to take risks even when the odds favor success. The sunk cost fallacy is another mental trap, one that ties us to our past decisions. Once we've invested time, money, or emotion into something, we feel compelled to continue even when it no longer serves us. We stay in failing projects, toxic relationships, or bad habits simply because quitting feels like waste. The truth is, the past is gone. What matters is whether continuing adds value now. Rationally, we know this. Emotionally, we struggle to let go. The sunk cost fallacy turns our investment into a cage. And then there's the bandwagon effect, our urge to conform to what others believe or do. We are social creatures. Belonging has always been tied to survival. but that instinct can override critical thought. When the crowd cheers, we cheer. When the group believes, we believe. This is why trends, misinformation, and groupthink spread so easily. The bandwagon effect comforts us with the illusion of safety. Everyone can't be wrong, but history proves otherwise. True independence requires the courage to question even the loudest voices. Biases often work together, reinforcing one another. For instance, confirmation bias and the bandwagon effect form a potent combination. We believe what others believe because it feels familiar, and we seek only the evidence that proves them right. It's a feedback loop of false certainty. Escaping it demands humility, the willingness to say, "I might be wrong." That simple phrase can dissolve layers of bias faster than any argument or data set. What makes biases so dangerous is their invisibility. We can easily spot them in others, but rarely in ourselves. They operate like cognitive blind spots. We can't see them directly, only their effects. We notice them when our decisions lead to confusion, conflict, or regret. But awareness changes everything. When you start to see your own biases, they lose their grip. Awareness turns the unconscious into the conscious, the automatic into the deliberate. How, then, can we guard against these mental traps? Not by trying to eliminate them entirely, that's impossible, but by learning to slow down our thinking. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman calls this the difference between System 1 and System 2 thinking. System 1 is fast, intuitive, and emotional. It helps us make quick judgments. System 2 is slow, deliberate, and analytical. It takes effort and energy. Most of our biases live in System 1. When we pause, question our first impressions, and engage System 2, we create the space to think critically. The key is not to distrust intuition, but to verify it. One simple method is to deliberately seek disconfirming evidence. Ask yourself, what would prove me wrong? This question forces the mind to step outside its comfort zone. Another approach is to invite diverse perspectives. Talking to people who think differently doesn't just broaden your knowledge, it exposes your blind spots. Finally, practice humility. The smartest people are not those who know the most, but those who know how much they don't know. The bias trap is a paradox. The same mechanisms that once ensured our survival now endanger our clarity. But recognizing them does not make us weak, it makes us wise. When you see how your mind filters reality, you begin to understand that truth is not simply what appears obvious. It is what remains after you have questioned the obvious. The path to better decision-making is not the pursuit of perfect rationality. It is the pursuit of awareness. You cannot escape your biases entirely, but you can see them, name them, and gently step beyond them. In that moment of awareness, the maze opens, and you walk not by instinct alone, but by insight. That is the beginning of conscious choice, the point where the human mind evolves from reacting to reality to shaping it. Chapter 5: The Social Mirror. Human beings do not make decisions in isolation. From the moment we are born, every choice we make, what to believe, what to desire, what to fear, is shaped by the people around us. We like to think of ourselves as independent thinkers, guided by personal values and logic. But in truth, we are profoundly social creatures. The opinions of others ripple through our minds, often without our awareness, influencing everything from the clothes we wear to the careers we pursue. We live within an invisible network of expectations, norms, and collective emotions, a social mirror that reflects who we think we are supposed to be. The social mirror begins shaping us early. As children, we learn to interpret approval and rejection as cues for survival. A smile from a parent, a frown from a teacher, laughter from classmates, these tiny signals become powerful reinforcements, teaching us what earns belonging and what brings isolation. By the time we reach adulthood, we've internalized a silent rulebook about what is acceptable, even when no one is watching. Those early lessons linger. We imagine an audience in our minds and act according to its approval. The need to belong is ancient, rooted in the same instincts that once helped our ancestors survive in tribes. To be cast out meant danger. To be accepted meant safety. This instinct, while essential for cooperation, can also limit us. When the desire for acceptance outweighs authenticity, our decisions begin to serve the group rather than ourselves. This is the force behind social conformity, the tendency to align our opinions and behaviors with those of others. Conformity can make entire societies move in one direction, even when individuals privately disagree. Psychologist Solomon Asch famously demonstrated this in his 1,950 seconds experiments, where participants were asked to compare line lengths. When everyone else in the group gave an obviously wrong answer, most participants followed along, denying the evidence of their own eyes. The pressure to fit in was stronger than the urge to be right. Today, social conformity has evolved beyond physical groups into digital ones. Our social mirrors are no longer just family, friends, or coworkers. They are millions of strangers online. Each like, comment, and share acts as social feedback, shaping what we post, what we believe, and even what we value. Studies show that our brains release dopamine, the same chemical associated with pleasure and reward, when we receive social approval. It feels good to belong, even virtually. But that pleasure comes with a price. When our self-worth becomes dependent on validation, we start editing our true selves to maintain approval. The mirror stops reflecting who we are and begins dictating who we should be. The influence of the social mirror extends beyond behavior into belief. Humans are meaning-seeking creatures, and we often rely on others to define what is meaningful. When everyone around us believes in something, an ideology, a trend, a moral code, it begins to feel inherently true. This phenomenon is known as social proof. It explains why we follow reviews when buying products, why rumors spread faster than facts, and why movements, both noble and destructive, can grow rapidly. The more people who appear to agree, the more legitimate an idea seems. Social proof saves cognitive energy. If others have decided something is good or right, it feels safer to follow. Yet this very instinct makes us vulnerable to manipulation. Marketers, politicians, and influencers all understand the psychology of the social mirror. They know that people don't simply buy products, they buy belonging. They don't just adopt ideas, they adopt identities. When a brand associates itself with confidence, success, or community, it's tapping into our primal desire to be part of something larger. The same mechanism drives political polarization and group identity. Once we tie our self-concept to a community or belief system, we begin defending it emotionally rather than evaluating it logically. To question it feels like betraying not just an idea, but a family. The social mirror also shapes morality. What a culture deems good or bad is not absolute. It shifts with time and consensus. A behavior once condemned can later be celebrated, and vice versa. This is not because human nature changes, but because collective perception does. History is filled with examples: artists, thinkers, and reformers who were once ridiculed or punished for their ideas, only to be praised generations later. The lesson is clear. Popular opinion is not always aligned with truth. The courage to see beyond the mirror, to think independently while still remaining compassionate, is the hallmark of genuine wisdom. But escaping the social mirror does not mean rejecting society. It means becoming conscious of its influence. Total independence is an illusion. We are interdependent by design. The goal is not to sever connection, but to cultivate awareness. Ask yourself, whose voice am I hearing when I hesitate to act? Whose approval am I seeking Whose judgment am I fearing? When you identify these influences, you begin to see where your true self ends and where imitation begins. There's also a paradox within the social mirror. While we are shaped by others, we also shape them. Every decision you make, every act of courage, authenticity, or kindness becomes part of someone else's reflection. Humans are mirrors facing one another, constantly exchanging signals of what is possible. When you choose to think for yourself, you quietly give others permission to do the same. In this way, individuality does not separate us from the group, it enriches it. One of the most powerful examples of this is moral leadership. People who act with conviction, even when unpopular, become catalysts for social change. They challenge the collective reflection and reshape it. Think of those who stood against injustice, who voiced truth amid conformity. Their decisions began as internal struggles between belonging and integrity. Every act of moral courage starts with a decision to trust one's own reflection over the distorted image offered by the crowd. Yet, it is important to remember that the social mirror is not inherently negative. It can inspire growth just as easily as conformity. Positive communities can elevate our standards, expand empathy, and push us toward excellence. When we surround ourselves with people who value honesty, creativity, and compassion, we naturally begin to mirror those traits. The key lies in choosing your mirrors wisely. If you spend enough time with people who act with integrity, courage, and kindness, your own decision-making begins to align with those values effortlessly. In the end, the social mirror reveals a simple truth. Who we are is both personal and collective. Our decisions are shaped by the reflection we see in others, yet that reflection is also shaped by the choices we make. We cannot avoid influence, but we can choose awareness over blindness, authenticity over imitation, integrity over approval. When you look into the social mirror and see yourself clearly, not as the world expects you to be, but as you truly are, you step into the freedom of conscious living. To decide authentically is not to rebel against society, but to engage with it consciously. It is to see the mirror for what it is, a reflection, not a command. And once you learn to look past that reflection, to listen to the quiet voice beneath the noise, you will find that the most powerful decisions are not those made for the crowd, but those made for the truth within. Chapter 6. The Weight of the Past. Every decision you make is touched by the past. Even when you believe you are acting freely in the present moment, your mind carries the fingerprints of every experience, memory, and emotion that came before. The choices you make today are shaped by the lessons, wounds, and patterns of yesterday. We are all, in some way, products of our histories, walking collections of remembered pleasures and unhealed pains. To understand why you choose what you choose, you must first understand how the past continues to whisper into your present. Memory is not just a record, it is an active force. Neuroscientists have found that every experience you have leaves an imprint on the brain, forming neural connections that influence how you perceive and respond to the world. When you encounter a situation that resembles something from your past, your brain activates those old pathways automatically. You don't consciously decide to recall them. They arise as feelings, instincts, or assumptions. This is why some choices feel natural, while others fill you with resistance. You are not responding to the moment itself, you are responding to the echoes of moments before it. The past does not live in memory alone, it lives in emotion. Emotional memories are especially powerful because they are stored in the limbic system, one of the oldest parts of the brain, which governs survival and instinct. When something emotionally intense happens, joy, humiliation, love, loss, your brain treats it as vitally important, tagging it for quick recall. Later, when a similar situation arises, your body reacts before your conscious mind even knows why. The pounding heart, the hesitation, the rush of excitement, all are echoes of emotional imprints from earlier experiences. Think of a child who was scolded for speaking up. That child grows into an adult who hesitates to express ideas in meetings, fearing criticism. The fear feels immediate, but it's really an echo from years ago. Or consider someone who once felt deep rejection in love. They may avoid intimacy not because they don't want it, but because their body remembers the pain. These reactions feel like instinct, but they are learned reflexes. The past becomes a filter through which every new possibility is interpreted. Until it is examined, it quietly dictates the boundaries of what feels safe. This is the unseen weight many of us carry, a history of unprocessed experiences shaping decisions without our permission. The human mind is designed to protect itself, and one of its defenses is avoidance. When we experience emotional pain, the mind buries it under layers of distraction, rationalization, or denial. But buried pain doesn't disappear, it leaks into behavior. We find ourselves repeating the same mistakes, attracted to familiar patterns, recreating situations that mirror unresolved wounds. A person who grew up with unpredictability may unconsciously choose unstable relationships because chaos feels familiar. Someone who felt unseen may pursue constant achievement as a way to prove worth. These are not random choices. They are attempts by the psyche to complete unfinished emotional business. Psychologists call this repetition compulsion, the tendency to repeat what we have not yet healed. The mind seeks resolution through reenactment, hoping that if we can face a similar situation again, we might finally change the outcome. But without awareness, we only deepen the groove of the pattern. We choose what we know, even when it hurts. It is not weakness, it is conditioning. The brain prefers the comfort of the familiar to the uncertainty of the unknown, even when the familiar brings pain. The past also shapes our beliefs about what is possible. Every experience becomes a silent rule, a story about how the world works and what we deserve. If you grew up in an environment of scarcity, you may believe that success is always fleeting or that abundance belongs to others. If you were often criticized, you may believe that love must be earned through performance. These beliefs become invisible frameworks that limit your choices. You may think you are being realistic, but often you are simply being loyal to your past. Breaking free from this weight begins with awareness. You cannot change the past, but you can change your relationship to it. That starts by recognizing that the emotions triggered by your current decisions are often not about the present at all. They are about something older, something unfinished. When you feel an outsized reaction anxiety over a minor risk, guilt for saying no, hesitation in pursuing joy, pause and ask, when have I felt this before? That question is a doorway into understanding. The moment you trace a feeling back to its origin, it loses some of its control over you. What was once automatic becomes conscious. Healing the influence of the past is not about forgetting, it's about integration. The goal is not to erase your experiences, but to learn from them without being ruled by them. The brain has a remarkable ability called neuroplasticity, the power to form new connections and pathways. When you make different choices, when you face old fears with new understanding, you literally reshape your neural structure. The emotional memories remain, but they lose their authority. The past becomes information, not instruction. Forgiveness plays a crucial role in this process, not just forgiveness of others, but forgiveness of yourself. Many people carry guilt over past decisions, as if regret could rewrite time. But guilt, when it turns chronic, becomes another form of bondage. The truth is, every decision you made in the past was made with the awareness and resources you had at that time. You could not have known what you know now. Growth is not about condemning who you were, but honoring that you've learned something since. When you forgive yourself, you release energy that has been trapped in the past, energy that can now fuel new choices. There is also generational weight, the inherited beliefs and behaviors passed down through family and culture. You carry not just your own memories, but the emotional DNA of those who came before you. Patterns of fear, silence, ambition, or self-sacrifice can be transmitted across generations, shaping your decisions without your awareness. A family that valued survival over joy may unconsciously teach restraint. A lineage marked by conflict may imprint distrust. To make free choices, you must sometimes question the emotional inheritance you've received. Ask yourself, is this truly my value, or is it borrowed from someone else's story? The most liberating realization is that your past is not your prison. It is your teacher. Every mistake, heartbreak, and triumph holds data about who you are and what you need. When you stop running from your history and start listening to it, you gain access to deep wisdom. The very experiences that once limited you can become the foundation of your strength. The fear that once silenced you can teach courage. The failure that once humiliated you can teach humility and resilience. In the end, the weight of the past is not a burden to be discarded, but a source of understanding to be transformed. The question is not how to erase it, but how to carry it wisely. You cannot rewrite your history, but you can decide how it lives within you. When you see your patterns clearly, when you honor your wounds without letting them define you, you reclaim your power to choose differently. Every decision becomes an opportunity to either repeat or rewrite. When you choose consciously, when you act from awareness rather than reflex, you loosen the grip of yesterday. The past may still speak, but it no longer commands. It becomes a quiet teacher rather than a loud master. And perhaps that is the essence of true freedom, not the absence of history, but the ability to shape your future without being bound by it. Each conscious decision is an act of liberation, a declaration that you are not merely a product of what happened to you, but a creator of what happens next. Chapter 7: The Paradox of Choice. We live in an age of endless possibility. Every day, we are surrounded by more options than any generation before us. What to eat, what to wear, what to watch, what to believe, what to become. On the surface, this abundance seems like freedom. The more choices we have, the freer we should feel. But in reality, modern life has revealed a strange contradiction. As our choices multiply, our happiness often declines. This is the paradox of choice, the idea that too much freedom can quietly become a form of imprisonment. Psychologists first began studying this phenomenon when they noticed something puzzling about human behavior. People love options in theory, but when presented with too many, they struggle to decide. In one famous experiment, researchers set up a table of jams in a grocery store. On one day, shoppers could sample 6 varieties. On another day, they were offered 24. While the larger display attracted more attention, customers who saw fewer options were 10 times more likely to actually make a purchase. The reason was simple: more choice created paralysis. People became overwhelmed by the effort of comparing, analyzing, and predicting outcomes. In the end, they chose nothing. This same paralysis affects our daily lives in subtle ways. You open a streaming service and scroll for half an hour, unable to pick a movie. You browse hundreds of career paths, unsure which one to pursue. You weigh the pros and cons of every decision, relationship, city, job, until the very act of deciding becomes exhausting. This is decision fatigue, a byproduct of abundance. The mind, faced with too many possibilities, begins to shut down, mistaking confusion for caution. The result is hesitation, regret, and often a haunting sense that no matter what we choose, we could have chosen better. In the past, our ancestors faced fewer choices, but each carried greater meaning. A decision to plant, to hunt, to move, to marry. These were acts of survival, not preference. Today, Survival is easy, but satisfaction is harder. We are flooded with options that promise happiness yet deliver uncertainty. We chase the illusion that somewhere, among the endless alternatives, lies the perfect choice, the ideal partner, the flawless career, the best deal. But perfection is a moving target. The more we search for it, the less attainable it becomes. At the root of this paradox lies a hidden assumption that freedom equals the absence of limitation. We believe that to be free is to have every door open, every possibility available. Yet real freedom is not about infinite choice, it's about clarity. It's about knowing what matters enough to close other doors willingly. When we lack that clarity, choices become heavy rather than liberating. We become trapped in perpetual evaluation, living not in the present moment, but in the imagined world of what might have been. This mindset breeds the fear of missing out, the belief that every decision is a potential loss of something better. You scroll through social media and see countless versions of life: the traveler, the entrepreneur, the artist, the parent, the minimalist. Each represents a path you could take, but cannot take all at once. And so, you hover in indecision, afraid to commit, afraid to miss. This fear is not a flaw. It's the natural response of a brain overwhelmed by possibility. Yet, without commitment, we never experience the depth that comes from choosing fully. When everything is possible, nothing feels certain. This uncertainty breeds anxiety. Even after making a choice, we often find ourselves doubting it. Did I pick the right partner, the right job, the right city? Psychologists call this anticipated regret, the fear that a future version of ourselves will judge our present decision as wrong. It leads to second-guessing and chronic dissatisfaction, even when the outcome is good. The more options we have, the easier it becomes to imagine alternatives, and the harder it is to feel content with what we chose. But the paradox of choice is not a curse, it is a call to awareness. The problem is not that we have too many options, it's that we lack the inner structure to navigate them. When you know who you are and what you value, decision-making becomes simpler, not because the world narrows, but because your focus sharpens. Values act like filters. They turn a noisy landscape of possibilities into a clear path of alignment. You stop asking, "What's the best choice?" and start asking, "What's the right choice for me?" Learning to live with choice means learning to embrace limits, not as prisons, but as anchors. Commitment is not the enemy of freedom, it is its foundation. A musician becomes great not by playing every instrument, but by devoting themselves to one. A writer finds their voice not by writing everything, but by choosing one story to tell deeply. Love deepens, not through endless pursuit, but through staying, growing, and deciding daily to invest in one person. Limits give life shape. Without them, experience becomes shallow and scattered. Another key to navigating abundance is the practice of satisficing, a term coined by psychologist Herbert Simon. To satisfice means to choose something that is good enough, rather than obsessively seeking the best. This is not mediocrity, it is wisdom. The perfectionist's pursuit of the absolute best leads to exhaustion and regret. The satisficer accepts reality, acts decisively, and moves forward. Paradoxically, satisficers often report greater happiness than perfectionists because they spend less time dwelling on alternatives. The power lies not in lowering standards, but in recognizing when enough is enough. Mindfulness also offers a remedy. When you bring awareness to the present moment, the noise of "what if" begins to fade. You stop comparing your choices to an imagined ideal and start appreciating the real experience before you. Each decision, once made, becomes an opportunity for presence. You stop asking, "Was this the best?" and start asking, "How can I make the most of this?" Fulfillment grows not from choosing perfectly, but from choosing consciously and living that choice fully. The paradox of choice also challenges how we define success. In a culture that glorifies endless options, we often mistake flexibility for fulfillment. But people who live with purpose, whether monks, artists, parents, or entrepreneurs, tend to make fewer decisions, not more. They simplify their lives so they can focus deeply on what matters. This simplification is not restriction, it's mastery. It's the difference between a flood and a river. A flood spreads everywhere, but goes nowhere. A river flows with direction and power. To find peace amid abundance, we must learn to say no to others, to distractions, even to versions of ourselves that no longer fit. Every yes is meaningful only because of the no that protects it. When you say yes to everything, you dilute your energy. When you say yes to what truly aligns, your choices gain depth. This is how freedom transforms from chaos into creation. In the end, the paradox of choice teaches us that meaning is not found in the quantity of options, but in the quality of intention. The fewer decisions you make unconsciously, the more powerful each one becomes. Freedom is not standing before infinite doors, it's walking confidently through one and not looking back. When you choose with awareness, you discover that limitation is not loss, it is liberation. You stop chasing the fantasy of the perfect choice and start creating perfection through commitment. You realize that the art of decision-making is not about having it all, but about knowing what is enough. And once you know that, the noise of infinite possibility quiets, leaving behind the stillness of clarity, the kind that allows you not just to choose, but to live your choice fully, deeply, and without regret. Chapter 8. The Influence of Time and Pressure. Every decision exists within a moment, and that moment is shaped by time. Time, more than any other force, alters the quality of our thinking. It compresses or expands our ability to see clearly, to evaluate, and to act. When time feels abundant, our minds open, exploring possibilities with ease. When it feels scarce, when a deadline looms, or urgency rises, our perception narrows. We move faster, but not always wiser. Time, or the lack of it, doesn't simply affect when we decide, it affects how we decide. Pressure is time's shadow. It is the feeling that we must act now or lose our chance. In moments of pressure, the brain shifts into survival mode. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reasoning and long-term planning, begins to quiet, while the amygdala and other emotional centers take over. This is the same system that helped our ancestors survive immediate threats: fight, flight, or freeze. Under pressure, our minds become laser-focused on the most obvious choices, the ones that feel safe or urgent. This can be useful in emergencies, but destructive in complex situations that demand calm analysis. Think of an athlete standing on the edge of victory, a surgeon in the middle of a delicate operation, or a business leader making a split-second call that will affect thousands. Pressure, in these moments, can be both a gift and a curse. It sharpens attention, but also magnifies fear. It drives performance, but can also trigger panic. The difference lies in perception. To those who see pressure as a threat, it floods the body with stress hormones, tightening focus to the point of tunnel vision. But to those who see it as a challenge, it activates energy, alertness, and courage. The situation is the same. The story around it changes everything. The body's response to pressure is biological, but our interpretation of it is psychological. When you feel rushed, your body releases cortisol and adrenaline, preparing you to act. Heart rate increases, breathing quickens, and energy surges. This is the body's way of saying, something important is happening. Pay attention. Yet, if this state persists too long, clarity dissolves. Your brain begins to favor short-term rewards over long-term gain. You look for relief instead of resolution. The faster time feels, the more impulsive your decisions become. This is why hurried environments breed mistakes. Under pressure, People tend to default to familiar patterns, the choices that once worked or that require the least effort to justify. This is called cognitive narrowing. It's why, in emergencies, even trained professionals sometimes forget procedures they've practiced for years. The mind under stress is like a camera lens, zoomed in too far. Detail is sharp, but the bigger picture disappears. However, pressure itself is not the enemy. What matters is how we relate to it. Some of the best decisions ever made happened under extreme time constraints. Commanders during crises, pilots during malfunctions, doctors in trauma rooms. The difference is training and mindset. Those who master decision-making under pressure have practiced slowing down their inner world. Even when the outer world speeds up, they breathe, ground themselves, and focus not on panic, but on process. Their calm is not natural, it's cultivated. This idea, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, is a mantra in elite military and medical fields. It reminds us that haste does not equal efficiency. Acting quickly is not the same as acting rashly. The ability to pause, even briefly, allows the rational mind to re-enter the conversation. That single breath between stimulus and response is where wisdom lives. Time also influences the emotional weight of decisions. When we face a long-term choice, one that might affect years or decades, our brains struggle to grasp its true magnitude. We are wired for the immediate. We discount future consequences in favor of present comfort, a tendency psychologists call temporal discounting. It's why people delay saving money, avoid hard conversations, or postpone healthy habits. The future feels abstract, while the present feels urgent. But when tomorrow becomes today, we pay the price for yesterday's avoidance. To counter this, some of the most effective decision makers consciously expand their sense of time. They zoom out mentally, imagining how their choice will feel not in the next hour, but in the next year or 10 years. This perspective shift quiets emotional noise. When you think long-term, your impulses lose power. The decision becomes less about immediate relief and more about alignment with your future self. On the other hand, too much time can be just as dangerous as too little. When decisions have no clear deadline, procrastination creeps in. We tell ourselves we're waiting for the right moment, but often we're avoiding discomfort. Endless deliberation disguises fear as prudence. The longer we delay, the heavier the decision becomes, until it feels immovable. This is decision fatigue from the opposite direction, the paralysis of infinite time. True mastery lies in balance. The wisest decision makers know when to slow down and when to act swiftly. They develop an intuitive sense of timing, a rhythm between reflection and action. This rhythm is not taught in schools. It's learned through experience. It's the recognition that some decisions ripen only through patience, while others lose value if delayed. In the words of ancient philosophy, timing is everything. A seed planted too early may die in frost, but one planted too late will never grow. Another factor is external pressure, expectations from society, family, or peers. When decisions are made under social deadlines, you should have done this by now. Everyone else is doing it. We often confuse urgency with importance. Social pressure distorts time. It convinces us that life must follow a certain schedule, and when we fall behind, we panic. But the truth is, the timeline of others has nothing to do with the timeline of your own becoming. When you free yourself from borrowed urgency, you recover the peace to choose in your own rhythm. Some people thrive under pressure because they have reframed their relationship to it. They see it not as a test of survival, but as a catalyst for growth. Pressure forces clarity. It strips away the non-essential and demands focus. It reveals what truly matters. When time compresses, distractions fall away, and the core of your values surfaces. In this way, time pressure can become a teacher. It shows you what you truly prioritize when you have no luxury to pretend otherwise. There's also beauty in constraints. Great art, innovation, and leadership often emerge not in the absence of pressure, but because of it. The composer with a deadline, the entrepreneur with limited resources, the athlete facing the final seconds, all must create within limits. The limitation becomes a forge for creativity. Pressure, when embraced, transforms potential into performance. Ultimately, the influence of time and pressure teaches us that clarity is not about removing urgency, it's about mastering presence. Whether time feels abundant or scarce, the real question is, can you remain aware within it? Can you pause long enough to see the difference between impulse and intuition, between fear and necessity? When you understand time's influence, you stop letting it bully you. You no longer chase every urgency or delay every discomfort. You act when it's time to act, and you wait when waiting is wise. You realize that time, like the mind, bends to awareness. Under its pressure, you can either break or you can become sharper, clearer, and more alive. Every decision is a dialogue with time. Some require patience, others courage. The art of living is learning which is which. The clock will always tick, pressure will always rise, but within that rhythm lies a constant invitation to choose not from panic, but from presence. Because when you do, time no longer controls you, you move with it, gracefully, deliberately, and free. Chapter 9. The role of intuition. There is a kind of knowing that cannot be explained, measured, or proven, a quiet voice that speaks beneath the surface of thought. We call it intuition. It is the subtle awareness that rises before reason, the feeling of truth that appears in an instant. Intuition is older than language, faster than logic, and more personal than any system of analysis. It is the part of you that senses, not calculates, that feels, not concludes. In the realm of decision-making, intuition is both mysterious and essential. It guides us when reason reaches its limits, when there is too much information to analyze, or when time leaves no room for deliberation. Intuition is not magic. It is the mind's way of processing information below the level of awareness. Neuroscientists describe it as the product of pattern recognition, a synthesis of experience, memory, and perception. Your brain is constantly scanning for patterns, storing the details of every situation you've encountered. Over time, these patterns accumulate into an internal database of wisdom. When a familiar configuration arises, your subconscious recognizes it before your conscious mind does, triggering a feeling, a nudge, a pull, a warning. This is intuition at work. It is experience made invisible. Consider a firefighter who senses that a building is about to collapse moments before it happens. He can't explain why, but something in the pattern of the smoke, the sound of the walls, or the heat in the air signals danger. Or the doctor who knows what's wrong with a patient before the test results return. Or the artist who feels when a piece is finished, without being able to say how. These moments are not random flashes of luck. They are the subconscious integrating thousands of data points into an immediate understanding. Intuition is the intelligence of experience, delivered through feeling rather than thought. Yet intuition has long been misunderstood. In a culture that prizes logic, we are taught to distrust what cannot be explained. We learn to separate intuition from reason, as though one were spiritual and the other scientific. But the truth is, they are partners in decision-making, not opposites. Logic dissects, intuition synthesizes. Logic asks, what are the facts? Intuition asks, what do they mean? When used together, they create balance, the precision of analysis combined with the depth of understanding. The most effective thinkers, leaders, and creators are those who know when to think and when to listen. Still, intuition is not infallible. It can be clouded by emotion, bias, or wishful thinking. A feeling of certainty is not the same as accuracy. The danger lies in mistaking instinct, born of fear, for intuition, and born of wisdom. Fear-based impulses often masquerade as inner guidance, but they come from contraction, not clarity. True intuition feels calm, not anxious, expansive, not defensive. It moves you toward truth, not away from discomfort. The more self-aware you are, the easier it becomes to distinguish between the two. Developing reliable intuition requires self-honesty. You must learn to notice where your feelings come from. Are they rooted in past trauma, social conditioning, or genuine insight? This awareness grows through reflection and mindfulness. The more you observe your inner world, the clearer your signals become. Over time, you begin to trust that inner voice, not as an oracle that knows everything, but as a wise companion that sees what logic cannot. Interestingly, intuition thrives in stillness. The constant noise of modern life, the endless notifications, opinions, and data drowns it out. When the mind is crowded, intuition has no space to surface. This is why so many people experience insights while walking, showering, or daydreaming. In moments of mental quiet, the subconscious finally has room to speak. Creativity and clarity emerge, not from constant thinking, but from conscious pauses. The ancient philosophers knew this well. They spoke of contemplation not as idleness, but as the highest form of thought, a state where intuition and reason meet. In decision-making, intuition often provides the first spark. It gives direction before details, but it should not end the process. It should begin it. When a gut feeling arises, treat it as data important, but to be explored. Ask yourself, why might I feel this? And then let reason test it. If logic and intuition align, you have both the compass and the map. If they conflict, examine further. Sometimes intuition senses something that facts have not yet revealed. Other times, it reflects internal bias. Wisdom lies in the dialogue between the two. There are decisions in life that no amount of reasoning can solve. Choices of meaning, what to love, where to belong, what purpose to follow, cannot be reduced to numbers. These are the domains of intuition. It is the force that tells you when something feels right, even if it defies the logic of the world. Many of history's greatest innovators relied on this unseen guidance. Einstein famously said that his discoveries came not from reasoning alone, but from intuition, the sacred gift, as he called it. Steve Jobs described it as more powerful than intellect. Both understood that intuition is not a replacement for thinking, but a deeper form of it, a thinking of the whole self, not just the intellect. Intuition also serves as an inner compass in moral and ethical decisions. Logic can tell you what is efficient. Intuition tells you what is humane. Logic may justify action, but intuition whispers whether it aligns with your values. This inner moral sense, what philosophers call conscience, is a form of intuition refined by empathy and experience. It allows you to feel the difference between what is right and what merely appears right. In a world of competing truths and moral complexity, this capacity becomes essential. The cultivation of intuition, then, is not about learning to predict the future. It's about deepening your connection to the present. The more aware you become, the more attuned you are to subtle patterns, to the quiet rhythm beneath chaos. Intuition grows in environments of trust. When you stop second-guessing yourself and begin listening, you discover that your inner guidance was never silent. It was simply unheard. Still, balance is everything. Too much reliance on intuition without critical thought can lead to recklessness. Too much reliance on analysis without intuition can lead to paralysis. The harmony between the two is what creates mastery. A skilled decision-maker listens first to intuition, then invites reason to clarify it. They understand that intuition is like a compass. It points north, but it doesn't draw the map. Logic and evidence fill in the terrain. In the end, intuition reminds us that wisdom is not found in data alone, but in awareness. It is the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, between intellect and spirit, between what we know and what we feel. It cannot be forced, only invited through stillness, self-trust, and curiosity. When you learn to trust this quiet intelligence, decisions begin to feel less like calculations and more like recognition. You stop trying to force clarity and begin allowing it to emerge. You realize that the answers you seek often rise not from thinking harder, but from listening deeper. And in that listening, you discover something profound. Intuition is not the voice of mystery. It is the voice of memory, wisdom, and truth, speaking in a language the heart has always understood. Chapter 10. The Power of Self-Awareness. Every decision you make begins with a single point of reference: yourself. Before the world, before logic, before emotion, before influence, there is you. Yet most people move through life with only a partial understanding of who that self truly is. They make decisions not from clarity, but from confusion, not from consciousness, but from conditioning. Self-awareness, then, is not simply an abstract virtue. It is the foundation of all intelligent decision-making. Without it, every choice is a guess shaped by forces you cannot see. With it, every choice becomes an act of alignment, a reflection of who you really are and what you truly value. Self-awareness is the ability to see yourself clearly, your thoughts, emotions, motives, fears, and desires as they are, not as you wish them to be. It is not self-criticism, nor is it self-obsession. It is self-understanding, a steady gaze turned inward without judgment. It is the courage to look at yourself honestly, even when the truth is uncomfortable, because every unexamined emotion, every hidden bias, every denied wound continues to steer your decisions from the shadows. Awareness does not eliminate these forces, but it brings them into light, where they lose their power to control you. When you are unaware, your mind becomes a crowded room. Thoughts and feelings argue for attention, pulling you in conflicting directions. You act from impulse, habit, or fear, and afterward wonder why your choices do not satisfy you. You react to life rather than responding to it. But when you are aware, when you learn to observe your inner world as calmly as you observe the outer, you begin to recognize the quiet difference between reaction and response. Reaction is automatic. Response is conscious. Reaction is driven by emotion. Response is guided by reflection. Self-awareness creates the space in which that distinction becomes possible. Psychologists often describe awareness as a mirror of the mind. Most people look into that mirror and see only reflections of others, their parents' expectations, society's ideals, the judgments of friends, the stories they've been told about who they are supposed to be. But self-awareness means cleaning that mirror until the reflection becomes your own. It requires peeling back layers of influence to reach the authentic self beneath. This process is not comfortable. It means questioning your beliefs, examining your patterns, and asking why you do what you do. It means admitting that not all your decisions are rational, moral, or free, and that's okay. Awareness is not about being perfect. It's about being honest. The journey towards self-awareness begins with observation. The next time you face a choice, pause before acting and ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? What do I want to happen? What am I afraid of losing? These questions draw attention to the motives beneath the surface. Often, you'll find that what appears to be logic is really fear, disguised as reason, or that what you thought was duty is actually desire. When you slow down enough to see these layers, your decisions become less reactive and more reflective. There is a powerful connection between self-awareness and emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize and manage emotions, your own and others. But awareness is its root. Without awareness, emotion rules. With awareness, emotion informs. You can feel anger without becoming it, feel fear without obeying it, feel sadness without drowning in it. Emotions lose their tyranny when you learn to watch them with curiosity rather than judgment. This ability to feel deeply, yet remain centered, is one of the highest forms of maturity, and it transforms how you decide. Self-awareness also reveals your values, the inner compass that guides meaningful choices. Many people drift through life without ever defining what truly matters to them. They chase goals inherited from others, success, wealth, approval, without realizing these aims may not align with their authentic desires. Awareness invites you to ask, what is actually important to me? What do I stand for? Once you know your values, decision-making becomes simpler. You stop measuring options by popularity or convenience and begin measuring them by alignment. A clear sense of self removes endless hesitation. However, self-awareness is not something you achieve once. It is something you cultivate continuously. The self is not static. It changes as you grow, and so must your awareness of it. Reflection, journaling, meditation, therapy, solitude. These are not indulgences. They are tools for maintaining clarity amid life's noise. The more you return to yourself, the easier it becomes to discern the true source of your decisions. You begin to notice subtle patterns. How fatigue makes you defensive, how approval drives your ambition, how fear makes you rationalize avoidance. Over time, these observations accumulate into wisdom. Yet awareness alone is not enough. It must lead to responsibility. To see yourself clearly is one thing, but to own what you see is another. Awareness without accountability becomes avoidance. Real growth happens when you stop blaming circumstances or others and start asking, how am I contributing to this? That question, though difficult, is liberating. It shifts you from victim to creator. It gives you agency. Every pattern you recognize becomes a point of potential change. There is also a deeper level of self-awareness, one that transcends personality and touches identity. Beneath your roles, your beliefs, your memories, there is a silent witness, the part of you that observes everything but is not defined by anything. This awareness is pure consciousness itself, the same awareness that notices your breath, your thoughts, your emotions. When you rest in this awareness, you realize that you are not the storm of your feelings, but the sky that holds them. Decisions made from this level of awareness are not reactive or fearful. They are calm, compassionate, and wise. Modern life often pulls us away from this inner stillness. We are encouraged to define ourselves by external measures, titles, followers, possessions, accomplishments. But these are shifting identities. When we cling to them, our decisions become defensive. We choose to protect the image rather than nurture the essence. Self-awareness invites us to move in the opposite direction, to root our identity not in what we have, but in what we are. When you make decisions from that grounded place, your actions carry integrity, and your choices align naturally with your truth. There is a paradox at the heart of awareness. The more you understand yourself, the less self-centered you become. When you see your fears, you become more compassionate toward the fears of others. When you recognize your biases, you judge less. Awareness expands empathy because it dissolves the illusion of separation. The same mechanisms that drive your choices, emotion, memory, bias, conditioning, exist in everyone. To understand yourself is to understand humanity. And this empathy, in turn, refines decision-making. You begin to act not just for your own benefit, but for the well-being of others. In leadership, this kind of self-awareness becomes transformative. A leader who knows their own motives, weaknesses, and triggers inspires trust. They can admit mistakes, seek counsel, and make decisions that balance confidence with humility. In relationships, awareness becomes the foundation of connection. When you are aware of your emotions and needs, you can communicate them clearly, preventing resentment and misunderstanding. In creativity, awareness allows flow, the freedom to create without fear of judgment, because you are no longer trapped by self-consciousness. But perhaps the greatest gift of self-awareness is peace. When you live without it, life feels like a battle between conflicting forces. What you want, what you should do, what others expect. When you live with it, these forces begin to harmonize. You no longer need to control everything because you trust yourself to navigate whatever comes. Decisions stop feeling like tests of worth and start feeling like expressions of authenticity. Cultivating awareness is a lifelong practice, and it begins with small moments. A pause before reacting, a breath before speaking, a question before deciding. Each pause expands the space between stimulus and response, the space where freedom lives. Over time, these moments accumulate, and you begin to experience a profound shift. Life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. In the end, the power of self-awareness lies in its simplicity. It doesn't make you perfect, it makes you real. It doesn't erase fear, it helps you see through it. It doesn't give you control over life, it gives you presence within it. The world will always present uncertainty, but the self-aware mind no longer seeks to escape it. Instead, it moves through uncertainty with clarity, curiosity, and grace. To be aware is to be awake, to live not by unconscious habit, but by conscious choice. And when awareness becomes your way of being, every decision, no matter how small, becomes an act of creation, a moment where you shape your life not from the patterns of your past, nor the pressure of your surroundings, but from the quiet truth of who you are. In that awareness, decision-making is no longer a struggle. It becomes what it was always meant to be, an expression of wisdom, freedom, and authenticity. Chapter 11. Choosing with Intention. Every day, you stand at countless crossroads, some small, some life-altering. You choose what to say and what to withhold, what to pursue and what to abandon, what to believe and what to question. But beneath all these individual choices lies a deeper question. Are you deciding consciously or merely reacting? The difference between a life shaped by intention and a life shaped by impulse is the difference between authorship and accident. Intention turns decision-making from a reflex into an art. It transforms choice from a burden into a form of creation. To choose with intention means to act with awareness and purpose. It means that every decision, whether monumental or mundane, is made not out of habit, pressure, or fear, but from alignment with your values and understanding. Intentional choice begins with a pause, a moment of awareness between stimulus and response. In that pause, you ask, why am I doing this? What is motivating me? What outcome am I truly seeking? Most people skip this pause. They move from thought to action in a single breath, pulled by emotion or urgency. But intention lives in that small space between impulse and decision. That is where clarity resides. Our culture celebrates action, but rarely reflection. We are taught to move fast, to decide quickly, to keep pace with the world's relentless tempo. Yet, speed without direction leads only to exhaustion. The intentional person moves more deliberately, not because they are slow, but because they are awake. They understand that every yes carries 1,000 silent no's, that every choice carves a path and closes others. They do not fear this, they honor it. To choose intentionally is to accept the creative weight of your own agency, to recognize that you are constantly shaping your future, word by word, decision by decision. The first step toward intentional choice is clarity of values. If you don't know what truly matters to you, every decision becomes a coin toss between competing impulses. One day you chase success, the next you crave peace. One moment you pursue freedom, the next you seek approval. Values act as a compass in this confusion. They remind you of what remains steady amid change. When you know your values deeply, honesty, growth, compassion, independence decisions stop being battles of indecision. You no longer need to chase every opportunity because you can measure each one against your internal compass. If it aligns, you move forward. If it doesn't, you release it without guilt. Intention also requires honesty about motive. Many of our decisions are shaped not by true desire, but by fear, ego, or expectation. We choose careers to impress, relationships to feel safe, possessions to prove worth. These choices can look successful on the surface, but feel hollow within. To choose intentionally is to strip away illusion and ask, am I doing this because I want to, or because I think I should? The difference is profound. Should belongs to the world's voice. Want belongs to your own. The goal of intention is to make decisions that honor your authentic self rather than your inherited scripts. Another essential component of intention is presence. You cannot make a conscious decision if you are lost in the noise of the past or the anxiety of the future. True intention lives only in the now. It is born in the stillness that allows you to hear your inner voice. This is why so many wise traditions emphasize mindfulness not as a spiritual luxury, but as a practical necessity for clarity. When you are present, your attention becomes sharp, and from that attention arises wisdom. You stop moving on autopilot and begin engaging life as it unfolds, choice by choice. However, choosing with intention does not mean you will always make perfect decisions. There is no perfection in human judgment. Intention does not guarantee certainty, it guarantees awareness. Even when your choice turns out differently than you hoped, you can stand by it because it was made consciously, not reactively. Regret fades when you know you acted from truth. Failure, too, transforms when it is chosen intentionally. It becomes learning, not loss. Fear often clouds intention. Many people hesitate to choose because they fear making the wrong decision. They wait for perfect clarity, for a sign that guarantees success. But life offers no such certainty. Every decision carries risk. Every path holds unknowns. Intention does not remove uncertainty. It allows you to meet it with grace. It reminds you that you are not choosing outcomes. You are choosing directions. You cannot control what will happen next, but you can control the quality of your choice. The intentional person understands that clarity is not found before the decision, it is found through it. There is a quiet power in aligning intention with action. When your choices match your values, energy flows effortlessly. You stop feeling torn between what you do and who you are. Life gains coherence. You no longer chase fulfillment. It begins to emerge naturally as a byproduct of integrity. This alignment is not a single act, but a continual practice. Every day, you realign, recalibrate, and return to your center. Some days, you will forget and fall into old habits. That's part of the process. Intention is not perfection. It is awareness renewed. Intentional decision-making also requires courage. Awareness without action is just contemplation. To live with intention means to follow through on what you know to be true, even when it's uncomfortable. It means saying no when the world expects yes. It means leaving paths that no longer align, even if they are familiar. It means trusting that authenticity is worth the uncertainty it brings. Courage is the muscle that turns awareness into transformation. Another aspect of intentional choice is compassion for yourself and for others. When you begin making decisions from awareness, you start to see how often people act unconsciously. They lash out, conform, or avoid not out of malice, but out of fear or conditioning. Compassion replaces judgment. You stop condemning others for their choices because you understand how complex the architecture of choice truly is. This compassion softens your own decision-making. You become less rigid, more patient, more forgiving. There is also a spiritual dimension to choosing with intention. When you act with awareness, you begin to sense that your decisions are not isolated, they ripple outward. Every choice shapes not only your life, but the lives of others. Intention adds depth to responsibility. You start asking not only, what do I want, but also, what impact will this have? Conscious decision-making becomes an act of stewardship, a way of living that honors both individuality and interconnectedness. Over time, choosing with intention creates a life that feels coherent, meaningful, and alive. You stop drifting from one obligation to the next and begin living deliberately. Your days no longer blur together because each carries purpose. Even your smallest actions, how you speak, how you listen, how you spend your time, gain significance. Life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you are actively shaping. To live intentionally is not to have control over everything, but to bring consciousness into whatever you do. It is to meet each moment with clarity and care, knowing that every choice is a brushstroke in the painting of your life. The colors will not always blend perfectly, but when painted with awareness, even the imperfections contribute to the beauty of the whole. In the end, choosing with intention is about living awake. It is about making decisions not from fear, not from habit, not from the expectations of others, but from the truth of who you are and what you wish to create. It is about remembering that you are not a passenger in your story. You are the author. Each choice you make is a line in that story, a statement of your values, your courage, your awareness. So, pause before the next decision. Take a breath. Feel your motives. Remember what matters. Then, choose not hurriedly, not perfectly, but consciously. Because, in the end, the power of decision-making is not found in choosing quickly or correctly. It is found in choosing intentionally. For when you do, life itself begins to align with that intention, and your path unfolds not by chance, but by design. Chapter 12. The Ripple Effect. Every decision, no matter how small, sends ripples through the world around you. You may think your choices are private, contained within the borders of your own life, but they rarely are. Every word spoken, every action taken, every silence held, creates consequences that move outward, touching people, shaping events, altering the unseen fabric of existence. The ripple effect is the hidden dimension of decision-making, the awareness that your choices echo far beyond your own intentions. Imagine dropping a stone into still water. The ripples expand outward, each one softer than the last, but they never truly disappear. They merge, interact, and influence other waves in ways you cannot predict. Your decisions work the same way. A single act of kindness can change a stranger's mood, which changes how they treat the next person they meet, which might influence how that person treats someone else. Likewise, a careless remark can plant doubt or resentment that lingers long after you've forgotten it. We underestimate this power because we only see the first ripple, the immediate consequence. The rest unfold quietly, beyond the reach of our sight. This understanding has existed in every culture, expressed through wisdom traditions and moral teachings. In physics, it is cause and effect. In spirituality, it is karma. In psychology, it is social contagion. The idea that behavior, emotion, and attitude spread through networks of people like invisible currents. Your laughter can lift a room, your despair can darken it. Your courage can inspire others to be brave. You do not need to hold authority or fame to influence the world. Simply being human, you are part of a vast web of interaction, and every choice sends vibrations through that web. The ripple effect is not meant to burden you with guilt, but to awaken responsibility. Many people move through life assuming their actions are insignificant. They think, "It doesn't matter what I do. No one notices anyway. But this is an illusion. Every interaction leaves an imprint. The way you treat a waiter, the patience you show a child, the empathy you extend to a friend in pain, these small moments accumulate into something much larger. They shape the emotional climate around you. Over time, they define your legacy. At its core, the ripple effect reminds us that decision-making is never purely personal. It is relational. You do not decide in isolation. You decide within systems, families, communities, societies, ecosystems. Each decision contributes to the collective direction of these systems. When you choose to act with integrity, compassion, or awareness, you strengthen those qualities in the whole. When you choose indifference or deceit, you reinforce those patterns as well. This is how cultures are built, not by grand events, but by the daily, invisible accumulation of individual choices. Consider the social ripples of courage. History is filled with examples of one person's decision sparking transformation far beyond their imagination. A whistleblower exposes corruption and inspires others to speak. A single protester stands alone until others join. A scientist challenges dogma, opening a path to new understanding. These ripples begin quietly, often with an internal choice to act in alignment with conscience rather than comfort. The impact may take years to unfold, but it always begins with someone deciding, "I will not stay silent." There are also negative ripples, decisions born of neglect, apathy, or fear that multiply harm. A leader makes a selfish choice, and thousands suffer. A parent avoids difficult conversations, and generations repeat the same emotional patterns. The absence of conscious decision-making can be just as powerful as deliberate action. Inaction is a decision too, one that often carries its own ripples. The choice not to care, not to speak, not to act, allows systems of harm to persist unchallenged. The ripple effect also extends inward. Your decisions do not only affect others, they reshape you. Every choice you make reinforces certain neural pathways, emotional habits, and moral tendencies. When you choose honesty once, it becomes easier to choose it again. When you choose avoidance, avoidance becomes more natural next time. In this way, your decisions create ripples across the landscape of your own character. Who you are becoming is not the result of a single decision, but of thousands of small ones accumulating over time. This is why intention matters so deeply. If your choices ripple outward, then awareness becomes an ethical necessity. The question is not only, what do I want, but also, what will this create beyond me? You may not always know the answer, but asking it refines your conscience. It trains you to see yourself as part of a larger whole. It transforms decision-making from a self-centered process into an act of stewardship. You begin to understand that freedom is not the right to do whatever you want. It is the responsibility to act with care for what your choices touch. Some people resist this idea because it feels heavy, as though awareness robs life of spontaneity. But in truth, it brings depth. Knowing that your choices matter gives them meaning. It invites you to participate in life as a creator rather than a consumer. The ripple effect is not about control, it's about connection. It teaches you that you are woven into everything else. The smallest gesture can carry the greatest significance because nothing exists in isolation. There's an elegance to this truth. You cannot control the ripples once they begin, but you can control the intention behind the stone you drop. You can choose to act from kindness rather than anger, from honesty rather than fear, from compassion rather than convenience. Once the choice is made, the world takes it from you and weaves it into its infinite complexity. Some ripples return to you in unexpected ways. Help from a stranger, a moment of grace, a coincidence that feels like destiny. Others disappear beyond your view, yet still shape the unseen world. In modern society, where individualism is often glorified, it's easy to forget this interconnectedness. We are taught to focus on personal success, personal happiness, personal goals, but the deeper truth is that every personal decision contributes to the collective atmosphere in which we all live. If people act from fear, the world grows more fearful. If people act from love, the world grows more loving. The ripple effect makes clear that no act of awareness is ever wasted. The environmental crisis offers a powerful example. One person recycling or conserving water may seem meaningless, yet multiplied by millions, these decisions alter economies, industries, and ecosystems. The same principle applies to empathy, truth, and justice. Change does not begin with institutions. It begins with individuals making small, conscious choices that ripple outward until systems shift. The ripple effect also offers hope, because if harm spreads through neglect, healing spreads through care. If ignorance multiplies through silence, wisdom multiplies through dialogue. The smallest act of awareness, a conversation, a decision to listen, a refusal to follow cruelty, can start a wave of transformation. You may never see the final result, but it exists nonetheless. The world is moved forward, not only by the loud and visible, but by the quiet and consistent. Recognizing this power changes how you approach life. You begin to treat each moment as sacred. You speak with more mindfulness, act with more compassion, and listen with more presence. You realize that you are not powerless. You are profoundly influential, in ways both visible and invisible. Every day becomes an opportunity to shape the emotional and moral climate around you. And yet, the ripple effect is not about perfection. You will make mistakes. Some of your decisions will cause pain despite your best intentions. That is part of being human. The goal is not to control every consequence, but to live consciously enough to learn from them. Each ripple, whether graceful or clumsy, teaches you something about the currents of life. You begin to navigate more wisely, not because you always get it right, but because you remain awake to the impact you have. In the end, the ripple effect is a reminder that your life is not a separate story. It is a chapter in a greater one. Every decision you make becomes a line in that shared narrative. You influence others just as others influence you. You are both cause and effect, both the stone and the wave. To live with this awareness is to live with reverence for yourself, for others, for the delicate web of existence that connects us all. So when you face your next choice, pause and remember, nothing ends with you. Every action carries forward, shaping the unseen world in ways you may never know. Choose, then, not out of habit or fear, but out of awareness and care. Because the ripples of your decisions, your kindness, your courage, your integrity become the quiet forces that build a better world. Chapter 13. The Anatomy of Change. Every decision, no matter how ordinary it seems, is a small act of transformation. To decide is to alter the trajectory of your life, to choose one possibility and release another. Change is the silent consequence of choice. Yet, for most people, change is not a comfortable companion. It is something to resist, fear, or postpone. We crave certainty, stability, and familiarity, even when those things no longer serve us. But decision-making, at its deepest level, is the art of change, the willingness to evolve, to step into the unknown, to let go of what was in order to embrace what could be. Change begins the moment a decision forms inside you. It rarely announces itself with clarity. More often, it starts as an unease, a quiet tension between the life you have and the life that calls to you. You might feel restless, uninspired, confined, or simply aware that something no longer fits. This discomfort is not a mistake. It is a signal. It is your psyche's way of saying, you've outgrown this space. But because comfort feels safe and predictability feels like control, the first instinct is to suppress that signal. We tell ourselves stories to stay where we are. It's not the right time. I can't risk it. Maybe things will improve on their own. Yet, deep down, something keeps whispering. Change is coming, whether you invite it or not. The anatomy of change follows a pattern familiar to psychology, philosophy, and even nature itself. There is a rhythm, a cycle that repeats whenever transformation occurs. Recognition, resistance, surrender, action, and integration. It begins with recognition. This is the spark of awareness, the realization that something must shift. It might be triggered by pain, by boredom, by inspiration, or by loss. Recognition is both a beginning and an ending. It marks the death of denial, but awareness alone doesn't create change. It only opens the door. The next stage is resistance. Resistance is the mind's defense mechanism against the unknown. When faced with the possibility of change, your brain, which evolved for survival, interprets it as potential danger. The amygdala, your emotional alarm system, activates, flooding you with fear and doubt. You start imagining worst-case scenarios, clinging to familiar patterns, justifying why it's better to stay the same. This stage is uncomfortable, but it's also necessary. Resistance shows you exactly where your attachments lie, what you're afraid to lose, and what you've mistaken for safety. If you push through resistance with willpower alone, you'll often burn out or backslide. The key is not to fight resistance, but to understand it. Ask, what am I really protecting myself from? What story am I telling that makes change feel dangerous? When you bring curiosity to fear, its power diminishes. You realize that most resistance is not about the change itself, it's about the uncertainty that comes with it. The human mind would rather live with a familiar pain than face an unfamiliar possibility. Once you stop fighting change and start listening to it, you enter the stage of surrender. Surrender is not weakness, it is alignment. It is the moment you stop trying to control every outcome and instead open yourself to transformation. You accept that growth requires loss, that becoming more often means releasing what you once were. Surrender is the soil in which change takes root. It doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to the deeper movement of life. Every metamorphosis, from caterpillar to butterfly, requires surrender, the willingness to dissolve before reforming. After surrender comes action. This is the point where decision turns into movement. It might begin as a single step, a conversation, a letter of resignation, a boundary drawn, a habit broken. Action translates awareness into reality. It's also where fear often reappears, disguised as hesitation. The mind whispers, "What if I'm wrong? What if I fail?" But growth is not about the absence of fear. It's about movement despite it. Courage is not confidence, it is commitment. You act not because you know the outcome, but because you trust the necessity of change. Finally, there is integration. This is where the new pattern stabilizes. It's the slow process of embodying your decision, living it, adjusting to it, letting it become part of who you are. Integration is not always smooth. Sometimes it's messy, filled with moments of doubt and nostalgia for the past. But over time, the unfamiliar becomes familiar, and what once felt impossible becomes natural. You realize that change is not a single event, but a continuous unfolding. One of the greatest illusions of decision-making is the belief that change happens only when you choose it. In truth, change happens constantly, with or without your consent. Your body changes, your relationships shift, the world evolves. To resist change is to resist life itself. Decision-making is not about controlling change. It's about participating in it consciously. It's the difference between being swept along by the current and learning to swim with it. Every major transformation carries a moment of crisis, a point where the old and new collide. This in-between space is where most people give up. It feels disorienting because you are no longer who you were, but not yet who you are becoming. This is the liminal space, the threshold of transformation. It is both terrifying and sacred. Ancient rites of passage recognized this stage as essential. They understood that transformation requires a symbolic death before rebirth. Modern life, however, offers few such rituals, so we often mistake this natural confusion for failure. But when you stand in the in-between, uncertain, vulnerable, raw, you are exactly where real change begins. Change also challenges identity. Every decision you make about what to pursue, what to release, what to believe, reshapes your sense of self. Sometimes this feels exhilarating. Other times it feels like loss. We grieve not only people and things, but also versions of ourselves. Yet every identity, no matter how comfortable, is temporary. The self is not a static entity, it is a process of becoming. Decision-making is how you participate in that process. Each choice says, "This is who I am, for now." Resistance to change often hides a deeper truth. We fear not the unknown, but our own potential. We are afraid of who we might become if we fully step into our power. We cling to the familiar version of ourselves because it feels safe, even when it limits us. True growth requires courage to outgrow your own narrative, to stop identifying with your past and start creating from possibility. The anatomy of change also reveals that transformation is rarely linear. You don't move smoothly from awareness to action. You loop back, revisit, refine. Growth happens in spirals, not straight lines. Each decision leads to new awareness, which leads to new decisions. Over time, you become more skillful at navigating this rhythm. You stop demanding certainty and start trusting the process. There is also grace in change. The very discomfort you resist contains wisdom. Pain shows you where healing is needed. Confusion shows you where clarity is forming. Fear shows you what you value most. Every emotion that arises during change carries a message. When you listen instead of resist, those emotions become teachers rather than barriers. To master decision-making, you must learn to make peace with impermanence. The world will keep changing. People will come and go. Your desires will evolve. What feels right today may not tomorrow. But this is not failure, it's flow. You are meant to change. Growth does not betray who you are, it fulfills it. To choose is to live, and to live is to change. When you look back on your life, you'll see that the most pivotal moments were not the ones you planned, but the ones where you found the courage to let go. Each of those decisions, each surrender to change, became a doorway to greater awareness, strength, and authenticity. In the end, the anatomy of change is not just about how transformation happens, it's about learning to trust it. You don't need to control every step. You only need to say yes to the next one. The unknown will always be vast, but so is your capacity to adapt, to learn, to become. Every ending contains a beginning. Every decision, no matter how small, holds the power to begin again. Change, then, is not your enemy. It is the pulse of life moving through you, the constant invitation to grow into deeper versions of yourself. The question is not whether you will change, you will, but whether you will do it consciously. To decide with awareness is to become a co-creator of your evolution, shaping not just what happens to you, but who you become because of it. And that, ultimately, is the essence of wisdom. Not resisting the tides of change, but learning to move with them gracefully, courageously, and awake. Chapter 14. The balance between logic and emotion. Every decision you make is a conversation between two great forces within you, the mind and the heart, logic and emotion, reason and feeling. These are not enemies. Though they often seem to clash, they are partners in an ancient dialogue. Logic measures and analyzes. Emotion experiences and values. Together, they form the architecture of human decision-making. Yet most people live in imbalance, either ruled by emotion and pulled by impulse, or trapped in intellect and paralyzed by overthinking. True wisdom lies not in choosing one over the other, but in learning how to balance them. From an evolutionary standpoint, both systems developed for survival. Emotion came first. Long before humans learned to speak or reason, our ancestors relied on feelings, fear, attraction, curiosity, disgust to guide behavior. These emotional signals were fast and efficient, helping them respond to threats and opportunities instantly. Logic, on the other hand, evolved later, a refinement of survival instinct into deliberate thought. The rational mind allowed planning, reflection, and long-term vision. Emotion kept our ancestors alive. Logic helped them build civilizations. The modern brain still carries this dual inheritance. The limbic system, our emotional core, reacts within milliseconds. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and reasoning, processes more slowly. This means that every decision begins as a feeling before it becomes a thought. You experience a subtle emotional impression, pleasant or unpleasant, safe or unsafe, long before you can articulate why. Neuroscientists call this the affective primacy hypothesis. Emotion fires first, logic follows. What we often describe as rational decision-making is, in truth, emotion rationalized by reason. This understanding does not diminish logic, it contextualizes it. The problem is not emotion, it's unexamined emotion. When feelings go unchecked, they can dominate reason, leading to impulsive choices and reactive behavior. Conversely, when reason suppresses feeling, it produces sterile, disconnected decisions that may be efficient but empty of meaning. The key is integration. Emotion provides energy and direction, while logic provides clarity and structure. Without logic, emotion is chaotic. Without emotion, logic is hollow. Think of emotion as the engine and logic as the steering wheel. Emotion propels you forward. It gives movement, passion, and purpose. Logic determines where and how you move. Both are necessary to reach your destination safely. A life driven only by passion burns fast and erratically. A life guided only by intellect stalls in endless calculation. The art of decision-making is the art of keeping both in harmony. To understand how to balance them, it helps to see their distinct roles. Emotion tells you what matters. It assigns value to experience. Without emotion, there is no preference, no motivation, no meaning. Logic tells you how to achieve what matters. It tests possibilities, weighs outcomes, and predicts consequences. When the two are aligned, when feeling defines the goal and reason designs the path, decisions become clear, powerful, and deeply satisfying. But when they conflict, confusion arises. You may know logically what the right choice is, but feel emotionally drawn elsewhere. Or you may feel passionate about something that makes little rational sense. These are not signs of failure, they are signs of complexity. Every significant decision contains tension between emotion and reason, because life itself is both felt and understood. Take relationships, for instance. Love is profoundly emotional, yet sustaining it requires rational effort, communication, compromise, timing, boundaries. Likewise, careers demand strategy and logic, but without emotional fulfillment, even success feels hollow. The balance between logic and emotion is not static. It shifts depending on context. Some moments call for reason to lead, others for feeling to guide. Wisdom is knowing which voice to trust when. When you face an emotionally charged decision, ending a relationship, quitting a job, confronting injustice, emotion tends to dominate your perception. It floods your attention, amplifying certain details and obscuring others. In such moments, the logical mind must act as a stabilizer, not a suppressor. Instead of denying what you feel, name it. Observe it. Ask, what is this emotion trying to tell me? Often, emotions are messengers carrying vital information. Fear may be warning you of risk or of growth. Anger may signal a boundary crossed. Sadness may be inviting release. By interpreting rather than reacting to emotion, you allow logic to translate feeling into wisdom. Conversely, when you find yourself trapped in overthinking, endlessly analyzing options, running scenarios, seeking perfect certainty, it's often because you've silenced emotion. The rational mind, left unchecked, becomes a loop of indecision. In these moments, the heart's quiet voice must re-enter the dialogue. Ask, how do I actually feel about this? The answer may not be logical, but it will often be true. Sometimes the best decision is not the most rational one, but the one that brings peace. Modern neuroscience supports this integration. Antonio Damasio's groundbreaking research revealed that patients with damage to the emotional centers of the brain, though still capable of reasoning, struggled to make even simple decisions. They could list pros and cons endlessly, but felt no preference, no inner signal of value. This shows that emotion is not an obstacle to rationality, it is a prerequisite for it. Feeling is the compass that gives logic direction. The challenge, then, is not to eliminate emotion from decision-making, but to refine your emotional awareness. This begins with emotional literacy, the ability to identify and articulate what you feel. Many people mistake emotional intensity for clarity, but the two are not the same. An emotion can be strong and still misleading. For example, anger may arise from hurt, fear may mask excitement, guilt may disguise conditioning. The more precisely you can name what you feel, the more accurately logic can engage with it. Meditation and mindfulness cultivate this awareness. When you learn to observe your thoughts and emotions without immediate reaction, you create space between stimulus and response. In that space, emotion and logic can meet. You begin to notice how feelings arise, peak, and pass. You see that emotion is not your enemy, but your guide, an inner current flowing through you, not defining you. With practice, you can use emotion as data, not destiny. Cultural conditioning often pushes people toward one extreme. Some societies teach emotional restraint, glorifying stoicism and rational control. Others celebrate emotional expression and spontaneity. But true mastery transcends cultural bias. It recognizes that both emotion and logic are expressions of the same consciousness. They are not separate voices, but different instruments playing in the same orchestra. When they play in harmony, your decisions resonate with authenticity. Balancing logic and emotion also deepens empathy. When you understand the role of emotion in yourself, you can understand it in others. You stop dismissing people as irrational because you recognize that all humans feel before they think. This empathy improves communication, negotiation, and leadership. A logical argument may win compliance, but emotional understanding wins connection. The best leaders, teachers, and partners know how to speak to both the mind and the heart. This balance is also essential for resilience. Logic provides stability during emotional storms. Emotion provides meaning when logic fails to explain suffering. When tragedy strikes, reason can tell you how it happened, but not why it matters. Only emotion can offer healing through connection, compassion, and purpose. The most resilient people are those who can move fluidly between these modes, thinking clearly while feeling deeply. The harmony of logic and emotion is not achieved once and for all, it is maintained moment by moment. Some decisions will require more heart, others more head. The goal is not to silence one, but to cultivate awareness of both. Before making a major decision, pause and check in. What does my mind say? What does my heart feel? Where do they agree? Where do they differ? Then listen for the space in between the quiet intuition that often arises when the two begin to align. In that alignment lies the truest form of wisdom. Logic without emotion is cold precision. Emotion without logic is blind movement. But together, they create discernment, the ability to act not only intelligently, but meaningfully. The balance of the two transforms decision-making from calculation into creation. In the end, the dance between logic and emotion is the essence of what it means to be human. Machines can analyze faster, but they cannot care. Animals can feel instinctively, but they cannot reflect. Only human beings can integrate both feeling deeply while thinking clearly, choosing consciously while caring profoundly. This is our greatest gift and our greatest responsibility. When logic and emotion walk hand in hand, every decision becomes more than a reaction. It becomes an expression of wisdom. You no longer choose just what seems right or what feels right, but what is right, both intellectually and emotionally. And in that balance, life unfolds with a deeper sense of harmony. Not a life free of conflict, but a life guided by understanding, awareness, and truth. Every chapter of this journey, every idea, reflection, and story leads to one central truth. Your life is the sum of your decisions. Every thought, every hesitation, every bold leap or quiet refusal becomes a thread in the tapestry of who you are. Decision-making is not merely a mental exercise, it is the act of creation itself. With every choice, you shape not only your future, but your character, your relationships, your impact on the world. You began this exploration believing that decision-making was about selecting the right option. But now, you know it's about something deeper. It's about awareness. It's about understanding the forces within and around you, the pull of emotion, the influence of society, the echo of your past, the pressure of time, the whisper of intuition, and the power of self-awareness. It's about recognizing that you are both the observer and the architect of your own life. No one can escape choice. Even avoidance is a decision, and indecision is its own kind of path. The question is never whether you will choose, but whether you will choose consciously. Life will always present uncertainty. There will always be risks you cannot calculate, outcomes you cannot control, and consequences you cannot predict. But the measure of wisdom is not in avoiding uncertainty. It is in walking through it with clarity and courage. The power of decision-making lies in this truth. Every moment is an invitation to begin again. You can choose to forgive, to listen, to change, to rise, to learn, to love differently. No matter how many choices have shaped your past, the next one is still yours to make. Awareness turns each decision into a possibility for transformation. The quality of your life depends less on what happens to you than on how consciously you respond. When you choose from fear, life contracts. When you choose from awareness, life expands. Every time you act with intention, you reclaim authorship over your story. Every time you pause before reacting, you strengthen the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. And perhaps, in the end, that is the greatest freedom a human being can have. The freedom to choose with awareness, to meet life not as a victim of circumstance, but as a participant in creation. So as you step beyond these pages and return to the world, remember this: you are not powerless. You are not bound by the past. You are not trapped by uncertainty. You are, at every moment, standing before infinite doors, and the handle is in your hand. Choose with awareness. Choose with courage. Choose with love. Because every decision you make, however small, is shaping not just your life but life itself.